Okay. Pouring down rain, so if it sounds like I'm in a snare drum, I apologize. We are looking at this 2016 Ford Expedition. It's a two-wheel drive. He's wanted me to check the brakes while he's in for service. We're about to drive it to Florida. At a glance, it doesn't look like there's much anything going on with the brakes, other than they're getting a little low on the pads, but not crazy. But I wanted to show you. I'm gonna have to flip my headlamp on. Hopefully it doesn't get too bright. If you just, the importance of taking a wheel off and looking at both pads, it's very important, because you can have one pad sticking and the caliper slides, or the bracket, or whatever mechanism it slides in and out on, cause an internal pad or the outboard pad to wear quicker than the other, and that's what we're running into on the front and the back of it. So this outboard pad, you can see, is just about the same width as this screwdriver head. It's a little tiny pocket screwdriver. It's not very wide at all, so there's not a lot of meat left on that pad. It's not in danger going metal to metal right now, but if someone's planning on going out of town and being gone for a little while, you might want to go ahead and change that. If you look at the inside pad, let's see if I can get a better angle here. Better shot now. If you look at the inside pad, you can see I'm almost about a width and a half of this screwdriver head. Okay, so that's plenty of pad. I would never change that if both sides look like that, but you got one side that's wearing faster than the other, pretty good amount. Now we're at the rear. Okay, look at this. So I can barely squeeze that in. It'll barely fit. So that's the width of that pad is the width of that head on the outboard pad. But on the inboard pad, just look at it up here. It's more than double. More than double. Look how much room between the rotor. That's the rotor. And that's the pad. These pads are tapered, so that's just the best view I got right here. So right here, and I'll show you a little better when I get it out. The back pad, the back is where the outside on the back is dramatically wearing faster than the inside pad. That's not all that uncommon. Excuse my light. That's not all that uncommon with brakes. They just get dirty and they get sticky, and a lot of people will replace calipers for that. That's a big waste of money usually, unless the piston's sticking in the caliper or something like that, which we may find, but I doubt it. Usually it's just because the slides are getting dirty and sticky. So I'll go over it again in this video, and I've gone over it in other videos. Those for you that are learning this, so a lot of people will just take a caliper off, slap a set of pads on, and slap the caliper back on. Don't do anything. Just take the caliper off, put the pads on, put the caliper back on, all away we go. But you can't just do that. I mean, you can, but then you end up with uneven pad wear, because you've got to clean up these surfaces. You got to clean up these surfaces that it rides on. See all this that's accumulating here? You got junk that accumulates, and it'll wear grooves in these slide brackets. I've covered this in other videos, but if you haven't watched those videos and you're watching this one, you wouldn't know about it, so I'm going to cover it again. These slides, these brackets sometimes need to be smoothed back out. They'll wear little grooves in there. Now, whether or not it's worn a groove or in these caliper brackets, I don't know. Again, I can barely get screwdriver head in between the pad and the rotor. And then here we got tons of room. tons of room. So that's the pad, and that's the rotor. It's the pad backing, that's the rotor. So it's wearing twice as fast just about on the outside than on the inside, and that's usually just because it gets dirty and gets sticky. We're going to clean that up, and when we pull the calipers off and to put the pads on, we're going to clean it up. We're not going to put rotors on these because they look great. I drove it, they don't shake. There's not any crazy grooves worn in them. This one's a little bit, but it's very, 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 very minor. I don't think we need to resurface the rotors. They're just too good a shape. I don't think it's necessary on this installation or on this brake repair procedure. So we'll just do a brake job, a minor brake job, which is just putting pads on it and cleaning up our slides. So we'll pull these calipers off and see how dirty, and we'll see what the brackets look like once we get the calipers off the brackets. Okay, so we've got the caliper pulled off. All right, on these, the way these slide, they slide in these little metal clips. Make sure you buy a good set of pads. Don't cheap out on your pads. Just get, like, I mean, you can go to O'Reilly's and get the Brake Best Select ceramics. They're good ceramic pads. They come with new hardware, and you can see the thickness between that pad and this pad. See the difference there? That's the new versus used, and that is sticking on one side versus the other, which isn't that dramatic on the front ones. It's way worse on the back. So we'll put new clips in, new pads in, and you always want to check your slides in the caliper bracket to make sure that those are free. If not, then you got to pull them out, re-grease them, clean them out, then re-grease them. And that's about it. All right, so we got the new clips in, and these pads even tell you what's out and what's in. So these are the outers. You just slide them in. That's the inner left-hand side. We're on the driver's side, which is always left. All right. That's where we're at on the old ones. Okay. You just slide your caliper back over. Put the bolts back in and move on to the next side. All right, this is a little secret of mine. Can't tell anybody. If you've got access to get in, but I've already done this a little bit, that's why it's loose. But if you have access to get in with a big screwdriver to the rotor and through a caliper hole like that, you can just start pulling over. See that sliding back? That's collapsing those pistons in. Okay. This is going to make life easy on doing brakes. Do not ever press straight on that piston because you'll break it. So once you get the caliper slits on, you can go in between this old pad and the rotor, and you can just squeeze that caliper all the way in. Okay, I don't have it collapsed all the way yet because I'm doing it one-handed, but once you get those pistons pushed all the way back in, you can take these caliper bolts off, you can pop that caliper off, do your clips, check your slide pins, do all that, put her back together. Okay, you can see how thick that one is compared to that one. Same, it's a little more drastic actually on this side than the other, But that's my little tip. That'll make brake jobs go really quick, and it'll save you from having to get the C-clamp out, all that mess. So sometimes that trick doesn't work. Sometimes the calipers don't have that access hole in the back. Sometimes they do, and you still can't get over to the rotor to get any bite on it, to get any leverage to pull back around like that. But if they do, that's how I do them. I mean, I've been doing it like that for years and years and never had any issues. But just don't push directly on that caliper piston, because it will break easily. I've done it. I made that mistake years and years ago, and had to buy a caliper for somebody because I screwed up. So learn from my mistakes. Don't ever push directly on the caliper piston. Always have a brake pad in between. Pad tips for the back brakes. All right, these brakes are a little different than the front brakes on the 16 Expedition. All right, these things have different caliper setup. It's got an Allen-headed pin that slides through the caliper, so you want to make sure those slide good. Okay, those slide through just fine. But see here, these right here where those pads will ride, they click on, they slide back and forth right here. You can see someone probably used a brake grease or something, and you can see it's built up and it's kind of turned into like a gum, and that's probably what's causing the sticking right there. So I'm going to clean all that off. I'm going to take a Ziz wheel and just buff that nice and smooth again, and have a nice polished surface. You can see how this pad was dramatically thinner than the inside pad. This is the outside pad, this is the inside pad, and that's what a new set of pads looks like. Okay, so usually it's not the caliper's fault. It's usually the bracket's fault. The slides are dirty and sticky, and really, I mean, it is what it is. It just is the way it's designed. Some of them wear nice and even, some of them don't. But I really don't see anything directly wrong with the caliper. A lot of people, that boot looks funny just because the caliper piston's pushed all the way in, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's not leaking or anything. If it was leaking, you'd see fluid everywhere right there. So when the first time I push my foot on the brake pedal, that's gonna push the piston back out, take the slack up, and that boot's gonna be just fine. And I could probably work it around with my thumb, and it's probably got a little fluid in there. But anyway, so the best tip I could tell you about doing this style of brake is to clean this bracket up real good. And I'll show you the Ziz wheel real quick, or I call it a Ziz wheel. I take a die grinder, angle grinder, whatever you want to call it, with a little Scotch-Brite cookie pad, and it just take it and clean that surface off. First, I'm going to hit it with some brake cleaner. This stuff is thick like grease. They sell a lot of products to put on here to I don't need a new can of brake clean, but they sell a lot of products to put on brakes that and I've tried a few of them to reduce the noise, the squealing and things like that. A lot of times the squealing and brake noises come between the brake pad and the bracket, and that's great and all, but sometimes it causes your brake pad to stick. This is just brake parts cleaner. If you're not familiar with it, this is great for cleaning all kinds of parts, not just brakes, but cleaning oil leaks and all kinds of other parts. You can also see how the parking brakes work on this vehicle. It has drum brakes that ride on the inside of the rotor. It's a very common setup on a lot of vehicles. Some parking brakes are set up in the caliper, and it has a ratcheting piston inside of there. A lot of you that follow the channel are probably like, oh great, Dave's giving, Hot Rod Dave's giving more brake advice, more brake job videos. I apologize for the ones that are getting bored with the brake job videos, but I saw an opportunity just to, you know, maybe someone didn't catch that video, just to give them another opportunity to get some helpful tips on doing some brake jobs for you that haven't done so. If you've gotten anything out of these videos, please go back through and give them likes. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you're interested in this kind of content, there'll be plenty of it. Hit that bell notification for future videos to be dropped. You'll get notified as soon as they hit, and you won't miss a video. And that's about it. I'm going to show you how to I'm going to show you how to grind these down real quick. We shot them down with we've shot them down with brake clean, wiped them down a little bit. We're just going to take a die grinder with this little Scotch-Brite pad. This one's a little used. This is what a new one looks like. They just screw on to the head. These are awesome. You can clean all kinds of stuff with these, and you just take them and some brakes sometimes you'll run into where they've worn a groove in the metal. This is not like that. So basically all I'm doing is cleaning and polishing. Matter of fact, I'm going to put the new one on. I'm not trying to remove any metal on this one because it doesn't have any indentions. That's basically what we're trying to do. Just clean it up without taking any metal surfaces away, and when the pad sits on there, it slides nice and free. Okay. No problem. we're gonna get all this buttoned back up, and let's wrap this video up. Hey, appreciate you hanging out with me, and hopefully you learned something. If not, then just thanks for hanging out with me. Stay tuned, come back, check me out for further videos. All right, peace.